All right, we're going to do one more of these. I want to get this done before 11, so let's kick it into gear. First thing I want you to do is bring up the test03.html file. That's the first thing. And next, I want you to take and bring up the Payroll Iteration 3 file, copy everything from Payroll Iteration 2. You can just copy the whole thing if you want, but make sure that if you do that, you remove these. All right? So, sorry. So now my iteration 2 and my iteration 3 are exactly the same. I'm not going to run it to prove it to you. You'll have to take my word for it. Now, you may or may not be aware of this. You may or may not care about this. But what we're working on right now is what's referred to as structured programming. And for years, that's how programming has been done. Today, you use a combination of structured programming and object-oriented programming. We'll talk about object-oriented programming, but not until next semester. All right? But the point is, there's three things that make up structured programming. There's sequence, selection, and iteration. Iteration's got three names. Sometimes it's called repetition, and sometimes it's called looping. All right? The first couple programs that we wrote, the first one where we hard-coded in our name, we hard-coded in the hours worked, and we hard-coded in the hourly rate, boom, it ran and it looked the same every time. The second one that we wrote, basically, also, it just went boom, 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 boom. It asked us our first name, it asked us our last name, it asked us our hours worked, and it asked us our hourly rate. Those two programs were both sequence. They just ran one line after another. I read an article once where they were comparing sequence to an old widower. And what I mean is, the old widower gets up every morning, brushes his teeth, goes to the bathroom, has breakfast, goes to the park, sits there all day, watches life go by, then goes home. In other words, boom, 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 boom. 10 steps. Does all 10 with no variation. That's sequence. All right. Then in the last program that we just wrote, we started to do selection. We used that if statement. So we actually had an if-else statement in there, which said if the person had worked more than 40 hours, give them overtime pay, else give them straight pay. So that's selection. It's kind of like you're driving down a road. And assuming you can't back up, you come to a fork in the road. You've got to go left or you've got to go right, correct? That's kind of what we did in this program. So now we're going to do the last part. We're going to put a loop in here because now we can't continue to run the program over and over and over again. We've got it, the program stops, then we got to run it again. Then it stops, then we got to run it again. That's a pain in the butt. So we're going to go in and we're going to add in repetition, iteration, looping, whatever you want to call it. There's three ways that you can do this. All right, we're going to use what's called a while loop. There is also what's called a do while loop. And there's also what's called a for loop. I'm not going to talk about any of them right now. I'm just going to show you how to do a while loop. That's what we care about. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to run the program, and then when the program's done, we want to ask the user, do you want to run the program again? Does that make sense? And if we'll ask them to put in a yes or a no. Y or N. How about that? Y or N. If they put in a Y, we'll run the program again. If they put in anything else, we won't. We're also going to come in and we're going to keep track of how many employees we had and what the total gross pay was. Did you hear that? The total number of employees and the total gross pay. All right, so we're going to add some more variables. Those, when you start something with total, like total employees or total gross pay or whatever, those are called accumulators because we're accumulating the total number of employees. We're accumulating the total gross pay. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add two more variables. I'm going to call the first one tote emps. Now we can call it tote employees. That's fine. And I'm going to set that equal to 0. As of right now, we haven't done any, so we don't have any. And I'm going to have tote gross pay, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. One idea I'm trying to get across to you is to use good variable names. I'm not saying these are perfect, but kind of a litmus test for this is, let's say that you got a job and you're a programmer. And let's say that you report to somebody who's not a programmer. And they say, hey, Ryan, what are you working on? And you show them your code. They should at least be able to look at it between the comments and the variable names that you've used and have a rough idea of what's going on. All right? I don't know if you read any Dilbert. I know that used to be in. It's not probably as in as it used to be, but I love Dilbert. And Dilbert's got the pointy-haired boss who's basically an idiot. And the idea is the pointy-haired boss could look at Dilbert's code if it was commented well enough and it had good variable names and at least have an idea of what was going on. All right? Well, we also want to be able to allow the program to be able to keep going. So I'm going to create a variable that's called keep going. And it's going to be a new kind of variable because I'm going to give it a value of true. And I'm going to have another variable called again. And I'm going to set that equal to the empty string. All right, if I wanted to, if you look up on the screen here, I could put comments for each one of those. Would everybody agree with that? I could put a comment, but I'd be putting a comment here that would say like employee first name. That's a little bit redundant. All right, but really I could put a comment here that would say basically, you know, employee gross pay. Put a little asterisk there that meant that it was going to be different based on whether they had overtime or they didn't. This I could put non-overtime hours worked. This I could put overtime hours worked. Here, again, it's a little bit redundant, but I can put in total number of employees. And here I'll put in total amount of gross pay. Here, I'm going to put in basically, just for lack of better words, I'm going to call this program continue variable. All right, and I'm going to say used with program continue variable. Again, that's maybe I'm going a little nuts here with the comments. All right, and I've told you my own stories. I've never had anybody come up to me and say, you know, I really wish you wouldn't have commented your code so well for me so I understood how it worked. All right, that's never happened. All right, I've had people who've told me I haven't put enough comments in. All right. So this variable right here has got a value of true. If it's not true, what is it? It's false, right? That's called a Boolean variable, just so you know. So we've already been exposed to 4 types of variables in JavaScript. You may not realize it. First, we looked at string variables, which are denoted by putting the value in either single quotes or double quotes. So that was first, were strings. Second were numbers. All right. Third was undefined, which is a variable. And the fourth, the one we just looked at, was a Boolean. All right. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to keep going as long as I want to keep going. Does that make sense? All right. So that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, you know, I've got everything up here, all this good stuff. This is my program. Would you agree that basically right here, other than the variables, that's my program? Okay. But what I want to do is I want to highlight everything from where it says prompt for values all the way down to, but not including the last curly brace. I want to highlight all of that. Now this is only, I don't know if this works or not in brackets if you're using brackets, but I want to highlight all of it because I want to hit tab. Now I just tabbed it all over one. Okay, why did I do that? Because I'm going to put some code here that says while keep going. And then a curly brace, and then the other curly brace I'm going to put down right before the end of the program. Right there. I'm not done yet. All right, just so you know, I'm going to put this down. This is a shortcut for everybody see the line I just put in and the comment that goes with it? If it makes it easier for you to understand, then put in while keep going equal true. If that makes it easier for you to understand, then do that. All right? So this means the same thing as this. Does everybody get that? Okay? Now, if I wanted to, don't do this, but if I wanted to put false here, if I wanted that to be false, then I put that there. That means not. We don't want to do that here. We want this to be true.
Why two equal signs?
Question is, why two equal signs? Because one equal sign means assignment. So if we had just one, it would be taking, if we had just one equals here, it would be taking true and assigning it to keep going. It is always true. All right? So you need two in there. Two means equality, one means assignment. All right? So now it's going to keep going, but we're not done yet. Because, you know, we've actually got a lot of this done, believe it or not, already. So now what we can do is we can go down to the bottom after our alert. All the way down to here. Now we got to add our new code. And I'm just going to put a comment here that says new code added for Payroll Iteration 03. You don't have to put that in, but I just want you to know that everything we did here, all of this stuff up till this point, everything there, that's all the same as what we already did. We're not changing any of it. It all works. But if you remember, what did we say? We said we were going to put in the total number of employees, correct? We also said we were going to put in the total gross pay, correct? So let's do that now. And I want to show you this. I want to show you four ways that we can put in the total employees, okay? Now, I don't want you to write any of them down because I want you to look at what I'm doing instead. We want to add one to total employees. We've just added an employee. So there's four ways we can do this. We can say total, this is the worst way, employees equals total employees plus 1. That'll work. It'll work just fine. All right? There's a shortcut, though, where you can say total employees plus equal 1. So this is a shortcut for this. Hopefully looking at that, you can see, okay? There's also two other ways. What I'm going to show you in these two other ways only works if I want to add 1 to the value, which is what I want to do here. So I can either say plus plus total employees, or I can say total employees plus plus. There is a difference between these. This is called the pre-increment and the post-increment. I don't want to talk about that now. All four of these add 1 to our number of total employees. All four. So I'm going to leave them all in there, but I'm going to comment them out just so you can see them. All right. And then I'm just going to choose this one right here. Plus plus total employees. This you can type in. Okay? So that's going to add 1 So I'll put even a comment here that says increment the total number of employees by 1. Because that's exactly what that's doing. All right. And now I want to say add current gross pay to total gross pay. All right. Did we call that one before total employees? No, we called it total employees. See this? I called it total employees. I better not call it total employees down here. I better call it tote. If you called yours tote like I did, change all these totals to the word tote. Do I have to, Jeff? Well, if you want the program to work, you do. Or if you don't want to do that, change this to the word total. One or the other, but they have to be the same. I'm going to keep it tote. This is tote gross pay. Okay. Now, what I can say here is this equals the total gross pay plus the gross pay. Okay, I can do that. I'm not going to do that. Screw that. Pardon my French. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say plus equal. So again, that is a shortcut for So again, that is a shortcut for this. I don't want to say plus plus there because that's going to add, instead of a gross pay, it's going to add 1. I don't want to do that. That would just be wrong. Okay, so now what have I done? Well, I've added, now I've got my total number of employees are correct. Now my total gross pay is correct. Now I've got to ask the user if they want to run the program again. Okay? Now I'm going to write the code for you, and I'm going to show you probably what I would consider to be the absolute worst way of doing it. All right, I'm going to show you that first. So don't copy this down yet. All right, then we'll make it better, and we'll make it better than that. All right, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put a comment in that says, ask the user if they want to run the program again or not. So what I'm telling you is don't type in this. In fact, I'm going to run this. No, that's good enough. So I could say here the word again, and I can set that equal to a prompt that says run program again, question mark, and we'll even make it easy for them. We'll put in there yes. We'll assume they want to run the program again. Does that make sense? Okay. You see any kind of problem? What we're going to put in here now is this. Again, I'm going to fix this in just a minute, but I'm going to say if again equal y, keep going. In other words, do I want to keep going? I'm going to set it equal to true. That's a little redundant. It already is. But I'm going to say else keep going equal false. All right? Now I'm going to save this, and I'm actually going to run it. Again, we're going to make this better in just a minute. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes. All right? Jeff, Scott, 50, 20. Well, something screwed up. That's not a great start. We'll fix it. All right? But the point is, I'm assuming that the user is going to either hit enter or put in Y, correct? This won't account for them putting in a lowercase y. This won't account for them putting in yes. You understand what I'm saying? All right. I'm just assuming they know what the hell they're doing. That's the worst assumption that you can make. All right. So this, again, I'm going to come down here then, and again, this is not the best way to write this, but I'm going to say this. again, equal, again, dot to uppercase. Okay? Now I'm going to ask the obvious, what is that doing? It's making it uppercase. So if I put in a little y, it's going to make it a big Y. If I put in a little YES, it's going to make it a big YES. Does that make sense? That is calling a built-in JavaScript function that is called to uppercase. And you might have already guessed this. There's another one that's called to lowercase. Okay? If for some reason we wanted to check for lowercase, we could do that too. All right? So we've got that. Now it's fine, but we're assuming here that what they did was they put in a Y or not a Y. But again, if they put in yes, well, for lack of better words, right now, we're kind of screwed. Does that make sense to everybody? Because we're checking here for a Y. The other thing we could have done if we didn't want to do this, we could have said, if again, I over parenthesized, but if it's equal to this, or, and that's an or, we'll get into that in later lectures, again, equal lowercase y. We could have done that too. That's called code bloat. When you're writing code you don't have to write. All right? So I'm getting rid of that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want any of this. I want that. All right? But would you agree that whatever I type in here, would you agree with that? I only want the first character. Would you agree with that? If they hit the space bar first, it's their problem. Okay? But if they type in yes, I only want the Y. All right? So I can tell it, and this you can type in, just grab the first character and make it uppercase. This is only grabbing the first character. Did everybody hear that? I'm just picking off the first character right here. The charat says grab the first character that I put in there. All right? And make it uppercase. Now I can check to see whether or not it's a Y. Does what I'm doing make sense? I'm actually calling two different functions. Again, dot. The dot means I'm about to call a function. And I'm calling char at, which means give me the character at. Since we're computer people, our first position is position 0. And then take that and make it uppercase. All right? There's one more thing we want to do. Does anybody remember what it is? We have figured out our total number of employees, correct? We have figured out our total gross pay, correct? We've got it in a loop, correct? What aren't we doing right now? How about this? We've got a total number of employees, we've got a total gross pay. We're never printing those out. Would you agree with that? Right now, we're not. We don't want to do that in this while loop. We only want to do it when we fall out of the loop. So we want to get to our second last curly right there. We want to get to that curly right there. And now we want to put in another alert. I'm just going to go and copy a bunch of stuff from in here because it'll make it easier for me. So I'm going to copy that. All right, and I'm going to change all of it, but at least I've got this stuff in there now. And I'll keep that 2 fixed. All right, so I'm going to put in here total, total number of employees. Well, I don't need a .2 fixed on here, do I? I don't have part of an employee. So I'm just going to say here plus, what did I just do? Tote employees plus \n plus total employees gross pay plus tote gross pay. That I will do a to-fixed on. All right, I've got an error someplace in my code. I'm not sure where it is. I'm going to look for it. All right. Now, Jesse is not here today. I consider that to be very unfortunate. All right. So, to make it easier for him, what I'm going to do is I am going to print out my code for the first ones that we went through. Not the comments, but just the code. I will ask at the end of class today if you want a copy of that. I will be more than happy to do that. What happened was when I ran this for the people last year at this time, the people who are now second year people, I just gave them the code. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think there's one of them that I said, I expect you to key this in, and I don't think one of them did. Okay? That was a mistake on my part. That's why we're doing it as a class. All right? So, I'll come right back down to the bottom, but if you look, what we added to this iteration here was we added those four variables. Total employees, which had our total number of employees. Total gross pay, which had the total amount of all the gross pay. Keep going, which is our new type of variable, our Boolean, which I call the program continue variable, and again, which we used with that. We use that along with our program continue variable. This while keep going was a shortcut for while keep going equal true. And then we took the whole thing that we had in our last program, starting from our prompt statements, we took all of it and we put every bit of it into that while keep going statement. Then we talked about 4 different ways to add 1 to a variable. We chose this one, and the main reason I chose that one is it runs the fastest out of all 4. This is even faster than this is, this last one. This one with the plus at the beginning is faster than the plus at the end. All right. For what we're doing, is it really that much of a difference if it takes 1,000th of a second more by doing one of these ways? No. But I'm trying to teach you because you never know, you may end up going to work for a place where they're a place that's known as being real-time sensitive. In other words, you've got to have the answer right now. Where if I don't get the answer like this, it doesn't matter anymore. It's too late. That's real-time sensitive code. All right. So we added to our total, and again, you don't have to put this, but I could say increment total employees accumulator. These are all words you're going to have to learn, all right? And add current pay to total gross pay accumulator. All right, so we did that. That one, again, we had to say plus equal or total gross pay equal total gross pay plus gross pay. All right, then we came down and we did all this. We asked the user if they wanted to run the program again or not. So we said, we prompted them to see if they wanted to run it again or they didn't. Then we only grabbed the first character and made that first character uppercase. And if that first character was a Y, we said, yes, we want to keep going. Otherwise, we said, no, we don't want to keep going. Does the logic there make sense to everyone? All right, now you may have typed it in, and if you did exactly what I did, yours might not work either. Or yours may work. I've got a syntax error in here someplace. I'll figure out what that is. I'm more concerned, do you understand what the underlying logic is doing? All right? Because tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to write 3 more iterations. So we had iteration 0, where we did hard coding. We had iteration 1, which introduced us to the prompt statement. We had iteration 2, which gave us the if and the else. And we just did iteration 3, which had the while loop. All right, tomorrow we're first going to do iteration 4, which will be functions with what are called parameters. We'll learn that tomorrow. Then we're going to do iteration 5, which is functions with parameters. Then we're going to do iteration 6, which is going to use what are called arrays. As you'd guess, as we go on, these are harder and harder. Does that make sense? All right. This program, when we go from program 4 to program 5, there'll be hardly any changes you'll have to make. Okay? And just so you see this, you don't have to bring it up, but just so you see this, if you look here, if I open up Payroll Iteration 4, which is what we're doing next, you'll notice it's going to look a lot different. Main is going to be calling input first name, input last name, input hours worked, input pay rate, calculate gross pay, output individual payroll information, output total pay. So the idea is main will be acting truly as a driver. Rather than doing all the work in main, we'll be having main call routines. Okay? Now, we're going through 8 chapters in our book. We've already gone through the stuff in like about the first 4 chapters. All right? And I'm doing it like this because I want you to see this. You know, what do they call this? This is the 35,000 foot view where we're looking down on it and you're just running through some examples. I don't expect it to 100% make sense. But I expect that when we get to that point, when we're actually going through it in the book, that you'll say, oh, that's why he showed us that. All right? I think it's much easier when you get this and we do a little learning and then you relearn it as opposed to keep throwing it at you. Okay? And that was my goal here. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, can you go back down to the alert? Thank you.
You'll notice, too, that as we write in more code, boy, this is a real smart statement, our programs are getting longer. So the more the user wants in a program, the more code you're going to typically write. All right? And we haven't even really brought this into context with a web page yet. That's what we're going to end up doing. So again, the idea is we'll want to create a form that looks like this. I said this before. It'll say here something like first name and there'll be a text box. Last name and there'll be a text box. Hours worked, then there'll be a text box. Hourly rate, and there'll be a text box. All right, then we'll have a button here that says calculate. We'll have a button here that says clear. We'll have a thing here that says gross pay and a text box. So the idea is you come in here and you put in Jeff, you put in Scott, you put in hours worked 40, you put in hourly rate of 10, you click the calculate button, it'll put a 400 in there for you. You click the clear button, everything that's in there will clear out. Does that make sense? We'll move to that, but not right away. All right? And then we will, kind of do what this class is supposed to do, and that is to show the tie-in literally between writing HTML, writing CSS, and writing JavaScript. There's other things that you can do in JavaScript other than just what I'm showing you. Okay? I don't know if any of you did this, but remember this? I guess I'm asking. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But, with that Evan and I cleared out all of my my cookies this morning, so it's not remembering anything. But this was that Evan and Jenny G. Wow, that's a different Evan and Jenny G, I'll tell you that much. Oh, because that's Evan and Jenny. As soon as I saw Evan Bushelman, I thought, that isn't right. Okay, but remember this? I believe at least that's done with JavaScript. And what is it doing? It's checking the current day, the current time, from hours, minutes, and seconds from whatever their wedding date and time is. Does that make sense? And you notice that that keeps updating. Maybe you've gone out to a site where it says you are the 56th visitor at this site. That's done with JavaScript. Sometimes you go out to a site and it'll show you the current date and the current time. That's typically done with JavaScript. But we're bringing interactivity into what we're working on. All right? I don't know, Christopher, if you still need that or not. All right. Now, did anybody run this and have it work? Okay, like I said, I've got a syntax error in mine. All right? How many of you would like the code? Anybody want the code, or are you happy with what you have? If you're happy with what you have, I don't want to run off copies. I will do it for Jesse because he's not here. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not a super nice guy, in that I'm not going to sit there and just give him the electronic copies of what we've been doing. You know, and if he wants to turn on and think, well, you're a jerk, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I can't do that, though. I just don't have that in me anymore, because the only way you're going to learn to do this, here's a surprise, is to do this. And if I just give you the electronic copies, you're not learning. Okay? Even with Jesse, I hope he goes back and watches these tapes, because that's the only way that you're going to learn. All right? Anybody have any questions on anything that we've gone through? You understand then what we're doing tomorrow? All right? And tomorrow, we basically have all the code we need, just so you know. We've got all the code we need. We just are going to have to start breaking it up. So right now, our code is all integrated into main. We're going to segregate it out tomorrow into different functions. All right? So that's where we will pick it up then tomorrow morning. All right? You said there were no questions. You've got an hour. I know that's not a lot of time, but you've got an hour, and I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. Regardless, if we get done earlier, great. All right? Otherwise, the same kind of thing tomorrow. You'll have at least an hour. Friday, again, lab the entire period. I want to tell you one more thing. I think it's this Friday. Let me double check. I'm 99% sure it's this Friday. Yeah. Friday from 8:30 to 10:30, they're having a teacher counselor workshop. What this school is doing, you may or may not be aware of this, but when we're in a good economy, which basically, other than the people who were just ravaged by hurricanes, we're in a pretty good economy. We are. The unemployment rate is down, etc. That's bad for schools, because people don't want to go to school when they can just go get a job. Okay? When it's high unemployment, typically schools do better. The reason I'm telling you that is they are having a teacher counselor workshop where they're bringing in high school teachers and counselors on Friday. They're going to have lunch, or breakfast rather, like 8:30 till 9 or 8:30 till 9:15. Then they're going to walk them around both buildings. They're going to walk in here. When they walk in here, and I should have grabbed them yesterday and I didn't, I've got 25 copies, and you can have one if you want one, of all 4 of the classes that we have in the program. I have to give a 5-minute spiel on that. See what I'm saying? So when they come in here tomorrow, even if I'm in the middle of something, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to say, we're going to pick it up in a minute. I'm going to pause the tape, and I'm going to bring that up and talk for, it will not take more than 5 minutes. And if they have questions, maybe 10, but I don't really envision any. All right, just so you know, we're doing that tomorrow. All right. Plus, and this none of you know about, a week from Friday, I won't be here. We're still having class. I'm going to physically be here, but there is a job fair at the St. Louis campus. A year from now, I'm going to expect all of you to be there. They have a job fair here on November 3rd, a Friday, and on that day, it's going to be a lab day. And I'm going to walk over there, and I'm going to encourage that you guys walk over there with me. You don't have to, but they have approximately 50 employers, okay? The one in St. Louis is between 300 and 500. So it's much different. I have never gone to the one in St. Louis before, so I asked Charles, he goes, no, I want you to go. Take your second year people. So he's going to open up this doorway in here like I think he did the Friday when I was gone. He's going to do that. He's going to take attendance. So if you're not here, you're marked absent. All right? He will do that. His class is having a lab. He's probably not going to be able to answer any of your questions, so you'll have to just work with each other, etc. I know some of you are helping one another, which is great. But that's the 20th. And it starts at 9, so we're leaving here at 8. All right, it ends at 11:30. We're leaving at 11. So when you think of, I'll be gone from 8 till 12, which means it's this class. All right. And it's funny because a hand started to go up yesterday, and I'm looking at people. I said, hey, just so you know, because my afternoon students, I said, that doesn't mean you don't have to come to class in the afternoon. No, it's not making up for class. It's like I told my wife that once. We went to a wedding on a Saturday. I said, oh, now we don't have to go to church on Sunday. And she said, bull, you know what? She said, you're still going to church tomorrow. That's not considered church, even though it was in a church. Okay? All right. That's all I've got to say. So again, you see where we'll pick it up tomorrow. Question?
Do we have to read anything in the book?
Not yet. Not yet. On Friday, I'll let you know, okay? I'll let you know by the end of the time even though it's going to be a lab, I'll let you know on Friday what we'll be doing next week. All right, typically what we're going to do is very similar to what we've been doing. We'll do a chapter, there'll be some homework, there'll be a written test. We'll do another chapter, homework, written test, then a hands-on for those 2 chapters. We'll do that for 1 and 2, then for 3 and 4, then for 5 and 6. We're skipping 7, we're going to do 8, we're skipping 9 and 10, and we're doing 12. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12. So there'll be 8 more written tests and 4 more hands-on tests. All right? And this today, I believe, is day 32. All right, 33, 34. So like on about day 35, Monday, that's when we officially start the JavaScript, which is really good when you think about it. It means we've got an extra week because 40 would be the halfway point. We meet 80 days. So we're actually ahead of the game. That's really good. All right, and I want to keep that up as best we can. I want to give you time at the end of the semester where you can work on all this stuff. All right? Any other questions? All right, that's...
I guess they let us know when to order our books for the next stuff, right? I just have the JavaScript.
I can, if you want, are you talking about for next semester?
Yeah.
I can let you know right now if you want to see it. Okay? I can show it to you right now. Anybody who's interested. You don't have to write this down, but they will make this information available to you. Let's see. Let's go to, I'll just Amazon it. That's it. The book you will use then next fall, this is what it looks like. It is called, let me make it a little smaller there. It is called Microsoft Visual C# and Object-Oriented, an Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming by Joyce Farrell, and that's the ISBN. In fact, I'll print off this page.
Oh, yeah, because they gave us like a certain amount of money for this semester, and
Okay.
we used it toward these, and then
All right.
they gave us more.
Okay. And I don't know if you have to buy them to the bookstore or not. I mean, I'm looking at this. This is not, Evan picked this book out, so if you don't like the book, blame him. It's not a bad book, though. It really isn't. I don't know. You've used it already, Colin. Do you think it was a bad book?
No.
Yeah. You can buy it new on Amazon for $81.87. My guess is if you buy it through the bookstore here, it's going to be well over $100 because Amazon is the Walmart of this stuff. So. What I cannot tell you is what books you'll be using in fall of next year. That I don't know. I know that the book they're using now for the fall class is not gonna be used because it's a little outdated. And my guess is the book that we're gonna use next spring, it's also a little outdated. All right. But that you really don't have to worry about now anyway. So you don't need one. But just in case you're interested, I'll give you guys this one. And this is the book that you'll use for next spring, this spring.
I have a question about JavaScript.
Yes.
So I've been debugging that I got from the internet for like the past day, and I finally figured out the reason it's not working is because this branch was on another line, and if I undid that, it would work. So do you
Okay,
know why?
yes, I do. Because what happens is since you put it on a new line, and remember what I said, it implied right there that since you didn't have anything after it, that it implied that there was an unwritten semicolon. So it returned nothing. That's why. By putting that bracket in there, you were letting it know more to come, for lack of better words. Does that make sense? And it's a weird kind of goofy syntax of the language. I have no idea when they will get these books into the books. We go through the entire book, all right? And we're doing it the same way as we did this one. We do the entire book in about 40 or 45 days. Then you do databases. We don't have a book for that. I just teach you database theory, and we write a bunch of databases.
We're going with the 2015 book.
Yeah. No, we're not the 2000. I don't think she's even upgraded hers. I will tell you that there are some other ones that are out there that have the same stuff, and they might use say 2014 or 2016. It's the same one. I would look for this one if I can.